Welcome back. The Nigeria government hopes to push its public debt stock to 50.22 trillion naira by 2023, with domestic debt at 28.75 trillion and external debt at 21.47 trillion naira. Now, this is according to the projections in the National Development Plan 2021 to 2025. For clarity purpose now, the National Development Plan is a medium-term economic strategy document which seeks to achieve vital developmental goals through a significant investment in several sectors of the economy. Going by the plan, the federal government is also looking at borrowing 12 trillion naira between now and 2023. This means if the government succeeds in the borrowing, the country's debt profile will rise to 50.22 trillion naira. Now, that's lots of money if you ask me. But the most important thing is what we do with the money. Meanwhile, President Muhammadu Buhari has appended his signature to the 2022 budget of 17 trillion naira. The National Assembly had approved a total expenditure of 17.126 trillion against the 16.3 trillion naira now proposed by President Buhari in October. But while signing the budget into law, President Buhari expressed strong reservations on, quote, the worrisome changes made by the National Assembly to the budget proposal. Let's take a listen now to what the president said.
I must express my reservations about many of the changes that the National Assembly has made to the 2022 executive budget proposal. Some of the worrisome changes are as follows. A, increase in projected federal government independent revenue by 400 billion naira, the justification for which is yet to be provided to the executive. B, reduction in the provision for sinking fund to retire maturing bonds by 22 billion naira without any explanation. C, reduction of the provisions of the non-regular allowances of the Nigeria Police Force and the Nigerian Navy by 15 billion naira and 5 billion naira respectively. This is particularly worrisome because personnel cost provisions are based on agencies' nominal role and approved salaries and allowances. D, furthermore, an increase of 21.72 billion naira in the overhead budget of some MDAs, while the sum of 1.96 billion naira was cut from the provision for some MDAs without apparent justification. E, increase in the provision for capital spending, excluding capital share and statutory transfer, by a net amount of 575.63 billion naira from 4.89 trillion naira to 5.47 trillion naira. Nonetheless, provisions for some critical projects were reduced. These include 1. Reduction of 12.6 billion naira in the Ministry of Transport's budget for the ongoing rail modernization projects. 2. Reduction of 25.8 billion naira from power sector reform program under the Ministry of Finance, Budget and National Planning. And 3. Reduction of 14.5 billion naira from several projects of the Ministry of Agriculture and introducing over 1,500 new projects into the budget of this ministry and its agencies.
Well, as President Buhari there, raising concerns over the changes made in the budget. Now, it's important to note that as the federal government put plans in place to borrow more money, the amount for debt servicing in the 2022 budget is 3.8 trillion naira. That's about a quarter of the total projected revenue of the budget. So it's a huge concern. Joining me on the program now to analyze this further is Dr. Moda Yusuf, who is the Chief Executive Officer of the Center for the Promotion of Private Enterprise in Nigeria. Dr. Muda, thank you very much for joining us on the program. Let's start off with the president concerns over the changes made by the National Assembly there. The impression you get is that, look, the president just had to sign this budget into law in order to meet with the January to December cycle, so as not to break that promise, so to speak, because you look at some of the issues he raised over the changes now, you would say they are enough, they are weighty enough to make him not sign the budget altogether, but of course that would be a different issue altogether to deal with, and of course we probably would not be able to make the January to December budget cycle. So he signed it out of grievance, if you like, I mean grudgingly, so to speak.
Well, I agree perfectly with you. We don't, I mean, given the kind of issues that he raised, he didn't need to sign the budget, because these are very, very fundamental issues. And I thought that perhaps it could have been better to clear these issues, to have some more engagement, maybe another 2, 3, 4 weeks to clear these issues before signing the budget. Because having signed the budget, it is now law. It's now an act of parliament, which is binding both on the executive and the legislature. So, but I had thought that from what we know about the relationship between the executive and the National Assembly, I thought there was a much more robust communication and engagement. I'm really surprised that the president could raise this kind of fundamental issues. So perhaps we have also, as citizens, overestimated the kind of relationship that exists between the National Assembly and the executive. But these are weighty enough for him to suspend the signing of the budget.
Is it that it's very sacrosanct for him to sign the budget so that the January to December cycle is maintained? After all, it's not as if the budget becomes operational from day one in January anyway.
There's nothing sacrosanct about it. We don't have to do that at all costs. I mean, if you have to, it is good for consistency. It is also good for the reputation of both the National Assembly and the executive, that they have been consistent with the January to December cycle. But if you have this kind of weighty reservations, I mean, you don't have to sign it. But having said that, I think perhaps they will have to work backwards after signing it to see how they make all this kind of adjustments. But again, I must also raise this very important point. We need to clear the position of the law, the position of the Constitution, vis-a-vis the Appropriation Act. We need to know who exactly has the final say on appropriation. We have been going back and forth on this thing since 1999. I think it is very important that we take this thing forward up to the Supreme Court, so you have clarity as to who has the final say on the appropriation, and whether the National Assembly has the right to increase the budget, whether they have the right to, put new projects in the budget, whether they have the right to reduce, I mean, these things require clarity from the judiciary. I don't know why we are shying away from getting the Supreme Court to interpret the relevant sections of the Constitution on this matter.
Let's now look at, let's even, because, I mean, you look at some of the issues he raised. This issue of 4 billion naira addition that the National Assembly members added 4 billion to the expected revenue, especially from independent revenue. You just begin to wonder if they're absolutely sure that some of these changes that they made, they're absolutely sure of them.
Well, the thing is that these are some of the things that account for poor budget implementation. Because what we are going to have at the end of the day is that because the executive has the power over the treasury, then the executive will have to pick and choose. The executive now prioritize based on its own priority. And at the end of the day, you run into this problem of poor implementation of the budget, poor releases, and you see a big mismatch between what is appropriated and what is actually released. These are some of the reasons, factors that lead to that kind of outcome. And it's a recurring thing. At the end of each year, between the actual expenditure or releases and the amount appropriated, there's always a very wide gap, especially as it relates to capital expenditure. So the earlier we sort out these matters, I think the better.
Let's quickly now talk about this issue of, debt. The government plans to borrow 12 trillion between now and 2023, and that will push our debt profile to 50.22 trillion naira. 12 trillion is a lot of money, and even now people are saying the government is over borrowing, but the government still plans to borrow further. I mean, 12 trillion additional borrowing. What's your take on it?
Well, it is worrisome because, just as you said, the debt service component of this budget is 3.8 trillion. At the end of the day, we will find ourselves in a situation where we are spending more to service debt than we provide even for capital expenditure. That is what is going to come to. And there are concerns as to whether this is actually sustainable. There are some computation that was done, I think, by the World Bank or IMF, stating that even as we speak, the debt profile is already around 50 trillion threshold. If you take into account, first, the federal government's indebtedness to the central bank.
Central bank, yes.
Which is well over 10 trillion. Some people say it is 15 trillion. Then the AMCON debt. AMCON debt is a sovereign debt. That is also another 5 trillion or more. So by the time you add that to this 38 trillion, which is in the books currently, you are already close to the 50 trillion. So we're even looking at a much higher figure by the end of 2023.
But the question is, if we don't borrow, what alternative do we have? Because the truth is that revenues are low. I mean, money is not coming in as such, and we have big aspirations.
You see, sometimes you have to be realistic with aspirations. That is one. Secondly, if you are facing a financial challenge, you also look at the cost. You look at your expenditure. In all of these issues, nobody is talking about how to reduce spending. That is also a major concern. I mean, we continue to spend as if we don't have challenges with revenue. And look at the rate at which the expenditure has been growing. So it seems there is no political will also to cut down on expenditure. I mean, look at personnel costs, look at overhead costs, year in, year out, these things are growing. Because when you are faced with a fiscal challenge, it's not only a revenue issue, it's also an expenditure issue. You look at the cost and the revenue. Where you can cut costs, you also take some pace to cut costs. But I'm not seeing any evidence of any commitment to reduce the cost. I mean, we have been talking about cost of governance, recurrent expenditure, overhead expenditure, and all of that. I mean, we see some of the reports of the Auditor General, some of which have been made public, about some of the leakages and, the quality of spending without accounting for it and so on. All these things are contained in the report of the Auditor General. And many people have been sanctioned. So we need to also look at that I'm not saying that borrowing is entirely bad. But when we find ourselves in this situation, we also need to look at the expenditure side. We don't just assume that there's nothing we can do about expenditure. They begin to talk about your spending and borrowing. I mean, there's a limit to which you should continue to do that. Because when you look at what you can call maybe the infrastructure or the assets, and you match it with the borrowing that has taken place, there's a big mismatch. And ideally, if you are borrowing, you should be borrowing more for infrastructure development, essentially. That is what will build the capacity of the economy to be able to repay the debt. When you compare the infrastructure stock with the amount of debt that has been accumulated, I mean, that's a very big gap. So these are concerns.
All right. Dr. Muda Yusuf, thank you very much for joining us on the program. Thanks for your thoughts.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Thank you.
I will take a short break and we'll be right back. Stay with us.
Opinions are free, facts are sacred, but truth is universal.
How, in practical terms, can we, for instance, de-escalate the tension?
President must see himself as the President of the Federal Republic.
We know where the enemy is. 3 places. The Lake Chad Basin, the border area between Nigeria and Cameroon, and then the Sambisa Forest.
On DEJI36O, we give you a complete dose of everything. Opinion, facts, and undiluted truth.
I hardly believe what politicians say in this part of the world.
A new Nigeria is possible, a future is possible.
We delve into the issues, dissect it so that you can understand it, use it to take action.
I don't think there's any need for any governor to look for grant for ranching.
DEJI36O, dissecting the issues.